Welcome to the Connect Your Health to Life coaching podcast. I'm your host, Seth Lusk. I'm a master certified self-image coach and empowered health coach with a decade-long background working in the health and wellness industry. If you're anything like me or the clients that I work with, then you're probably struggling with body image, self-image, or confidence issues. You're probably also trying to figure out why it is that you have these amazing desires for living your healthiest and most fulfilling life, but you can't seem to create consistent actions in your life to reflect those desires. So join me as we dive in deep on what it means to live a fulfilled and authentic life. We're going to look from the perspective of an empowered mindset and uncover reasons why you might be what's holding yourself back from living your most fulfilling life. I'm going to break through some of the biggest illusions and myths that we've all been taught to believe along the way. And I'm so excited to have you with me on this journey. So my only question for you is, are you ready to start living your most authentic and fulfilling life once and for all? Then let's get started, shall we? Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. For those of you listening in for the first time, welcome. So this week, I've got a special episode for you all, and I'm bringing on a special guest. His name is Leon Streete. We met through Facebook, being in some of the same entrepreneurial coaching groups together, and seeing a lot of each other's material on there, and we ended up having some conversations. And when I found out the kind of work that he does with people, I was just really interested in hearing his take on authenticity. And not just on authenticity, but how it shows up in our lives as professionals, either as an entrepreneur, a business owner, or even as an employee working for an entrepreneur or another business owner, CEO. It doesn't matter which category you fall in. Authenticity is something that doesn't just apply to our lives on a personal level, in our personal relationships, but it is so essential to our success and our becoming unstoppable in our professional lives. So I brought Leon on this week to talk to you all a bit about his story, what it is that he does and coaches people on, and also to talk to you guys a bit about how authenticity shows up in the professional world, as well as 3 of the key sort of mistakes that he sees entrepreneurs and business owners making when it comes to authenticity. So listen in, guys. He's got a lot of great stuff to say. I know you all will enjoy this episode. So tune in, guys. Listen to what he has to say. Like I said, I know you're going to enjoy it. So without any further ado, here is my conversation with Leon Streete about authenticity in the professional world. All right, everyone. I have my buddy Leon Streete here, and we're going to talk today with you all about authenticity in business and the professional life. So, Leon, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do as a coach, or what you call yourself?
First of all, Seth, thank you for having me here. And to give people an insight into what I do, I call myself a visionary marketing coach. And in a nutshell, I help people to connect to their vision through their marketing message. And a lot of the people that I help are usually coaches, like business coaches, life coaches, consultants, and online business owners, basically people who rely on marketing their business online. And if I was going to give you an insight into why I do what I do, it's very simple. I believe that the more coaches that we help and that I help in my business, and they're able to connect with more of the people that they want to help because we help them with their marketing, we're simply going to create a better future for our families and the people and our community around us. And, it's quite easy to get caught up in just helping one person, but actually the ripple effect is what I'm interested in. So that's why I do what I do.
So when you say the ripple effect, for me, what that says is, when you help someone to empower themselves and to show up authentically, they're going to then help other people surrounding them to do the same. Is that what you mean by that?
Exactly, yeah. Because the people that I help, as I say, they're usually providing a service to a problem. Yeah, and so they're helping, the people, their niche, their target audience. And so for me, that's what it's about. And, today's topic, as you prepped me beforehand with the interview, is about authenticity. And a lot of the people that I work with them because I get to know them before they're a client. And I do that because it's important to me that I am working with authentic people I know that they're in it to make change. They're not just in it just to get paid. That comes as well, but their primary motive is to create change for their community and their niche. And so that's why I do what I do.
Awesome. So it sort of, in my experience, when people get into sort of the realm of coaching, or even when it comes to things like advising people, generally speaking, I find there's a backstory for everybody. Like, why is it that you arrived at this is what I want to do to help people? There's a story for you that brought you to this path, doing this kind of work with people.
Yeah, there is a story. How long do we have, Seth?
if you can give us like the Cliff Notes version.
Okay, I'll give you the simple version. So I guess the main thing is that, you know, like a lot of people, the way that I grew up was this kind of traditional, you go to school, you go to higher education, you go to university, and eventually you get a job, and then you have a family, and you have a house mortgage, and you start accumulating debt, and you live a happy life, right? And for me, whilst I was aware of entrepreneurship, it wasn't immediate to me. So it's kind of like this cool thing. And so what happened was, just before I went to university, I started creating websites, and we're talking like 1997 was when I created my first website. So I went to uni in around 2000. And so before that, I'd started to get a name for myself, so to speak. And then people would inquire to me. And so I went to uni, and I was kind of doing this thing on the side. I was making a bit of cash here and there. And then when I finished my degree, I landed a really cool contract with the university that I'd been studying for. Yeah, and that came about because I built relationships with my lecturers, you know, the professors and so on. And that contract finished after 6 months. And what I realized, like, oh, there's no more consistent income coming in. And so I went back into my business, which was this kind of side hustle. And I did that for 6 months. And then the university contacted me and said, hey, Leon, we have another contract coming up, but this is a permanent role, and we'd love for you to step into it. And at the time, I remember it was like a management role. I'd never managed anybody. And they said, there's a management role and a kind of developer role. We'd love for you to apply for the manager role. And in the end, I applied for the developer role because I thought, I'm not ready to manage people. I don't have any skills. And in hindsight, I should have just jumped at the chance and learned, because that's what I used to do in developer positions anyway. I would just learn things on the job type of thing. And I always relied on myself to figure it out. But anyway, I left the uni after another 3.5 years, because I got to this point of, I don't have freedom. Like I kept going through promotions, Seth, and it was almost like it just landed on my doorstep. It was like, it was effortless. You know, another 2,000 after 1 year, another 2,000, another 3,000, some extra benefits. And I was like, this is easy. But then I got to the point where that was easy, but the work wasn't fulfilling. And so I went full time into my business. And to cut a long story short, in 2009, after about a year and a half, there was some, I kind of say, what's the word I'm looking for? There were some ramifications off the credit crunch at the time, the 2007-8 one. And I had a couple of clients who went out of business on me, owing me around about, in dollars, around about $45,000. And I didn't have the resources to bridge the cash gap at the time, which meant I had to close my business, make 3 employees redundant at the time. So I did become a manager in the end, which I learned at the university. And then I just got to this point where I needed to go again after closing that business down. So I had to liquidate the business. It didn't go bankrupt, but liquidate it, paid off all the debts that were owed. It took me a long time, actually. And I realized I needed to change where I came from. And so step by step, I rebuilt another marketing agency. But what I started to pay attention to, Seth, very simple. Who were the people that paid attention to me when I gave them advice, and who were the ones that got results? And after 4 years, 2014, I said, you know what? It's the people that I'm almost coaching. And since 2008, I had my first business coach, Seth. And so at that point, I realized I needed to coach my clients because they were the ones who won in a big way. And that's what brought me to where I am now. The visionary part, I'm sure we'll go into and how that came about as the interview progresses.
Yes. So yeah, I talked to you about the fact that I want to talk about authenticity in business, but I
Hmm.
think also your title there is the visionary coach. Um, Tell us a little bit about what that means for you. So when you say
Yeah.
I'm a visionary coach,
Mhm.
in my head, what I'm thinking is everyone has like a vision of what they want their business to be doing, what they want to be doing in life.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so what exactly do you do with people? Do you help them to find their vision, to follow their vision? What is it that you do here?
Follow and connect to it.
Okay.
So, as a visionary marketing coach, the way that I work is I come across a lot of coaches who, let's just look at the statistics kind of thing. Like, you probably got 3 to 5% of coaches who are actually making really good money. When I say really good money, 100,000 a year or more, right? The rest are just getting by, and that's the polite term. Yeah. And a lot of it comes down to their belief in their dream. Yeah, for me, a dream is really your vision. It's like what you see that's possible for you. And so, as a visionary marketing coach, I help people connect the dots to that vision. And then it's up to them to follow that path. And so, I simply make it easier by using their business as the vehicle to make that happen. Because most people who, they've chosen the route as a coach, it's because they want that freedom. They want to be their own boss, and they want to create impact and change that they can't create as an entrepreneur, as an employee. And so that's what I tend to focus on. And it's funny actually, because as I say, entrepreneur, I still have some people who are employees that reach out to me and still seek my guidance. So it's an interesting thing, but ultimately I help people to connect to their vision.
Okay. So
Mhm.
is there, for a lot of people, this sounds a bit abstract when you start talking about connecting to your vision and dreaming.
Yeah,
And I know for a lot of entrepreneurs out there, they're very much in this just go out there, find the how from someone else who did it, and then hustle, hustle, hustle
tangible.
until you make the
Yeah,
money.
yeah. Mhm.
So, what would you say is the process for someone in that mindset to get to the point where they're ready to recognize and connect to that vision?
I think the recognize and connect, based on all the people that I've coached and kind of worked with and facilitated at workshops and so on, most people get to a point where they recognize that there's something bigger than where they are right now. And sometimes it can be where I am right now. I feel there's something bigger, and I just can't put my finger on it. Like, but I can feel it. Yeah. And I know you said something tangible, but we all have this in us. Like, I haven't come across one coach yet where I've spoken to them and I'm like, is there something bigger than where you are right now, where you want to be? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, but do you really like believe it's possible? And they're like, yes. And then once they're left to their own devices, the doubts, the fears kick in, and they're like, oh, I don't know if it's possible anymore, And so for me, I think the tangible thing of how people can kind of either connect to a vision or even see is, if somebody says to you, and I see this quite often actually on social media, Seth, speaking about social media, how we met, but you from time to time, you see people say, if money wasn't an object, what would you be doing right now? Or if you had $10 million, what would you be doing differently to what you're doing now? And this is the trick of the ego. And so for me, the vision is something tangible, because if you look at the likes of Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, the people that we look into as heroes, the people who've gone before us and kind of showed that, wow, that's actually possible. And for everybody, you've all got your own heroes, people like Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King. And these are people that I regularly show in workshops that I deliver. Is that if you go back to the early stages of where they're at and you said, was there something tangible about them and their dream or their vision? No, they just had this belief in that there was something bigger than where they are right now, and they were just working towards this thing. And that's it. If you can follow in blind faith that you can create something that is authentic to you, that is going to create change, and you pursue it, that's the best life that you can ever live. I'm not saying the happiest life as well, guys, because this is a whole nother story, but it is the best life you can live. Because if you know genuinely that's the thing for you, that's your vision, that's the thing you feel compelled to pursue, and you pursue it, what a great journey you're setting yourself up for. And all I do is act as a guide to help people make that happen a little quicker with their marketing and their business.
So you brought up the word authentic in there. So I want to jump into this here and start
Yeah.
using this word here. it's a buzzword. It's become a buzzword, and I dislike it when
100%.
words become a buzzword because people forget what the word actually means, and it becomes this big social mess of opinions. And
Yeah.
so, what I would like to know from you, in your own words, when we
Mhm.
talk about authenticity or when something is authentic for someone, what does that mean? What does that look like for a person?
It's a great question. I was thinking that before this interview, Seth. For me, the simple term to be authentic in business is to be genuine. And then if I had like a lineup now of criminals, but they're all business owners, they're not actually criminals, they're all stood up in line, and we're going to ID the person who is authentic, let's say. It can be different to every person based on what they've gone through in life. And the best way for me to kind of explain who we truly are and how we can be authentic in business and be ourselves is when we stop trying to do things to please other people, to conform to other people's paradigms or ideas of what we're meant to be. And that's not an easy thing to actually do in practice. And what I say by that is, we've all gone through life how we were raised by our parents or guardians, the people that were around us, depending on how you were brought up and the experience you went through. The environment that you were in also put lots of programs and filters onto you and impacted and influenced the way that we believe ourselves to be. And I know, just speaking to you previously before, Seth, when we've spoken, is that the way that we see the world is a filter. Not everybody sees our filter. Everyone's is different. That's why I use the kind of lineup analogy. The one thing that I can say that I believe is what people can be or can be identified as authentic is when we realize that we don't have to conform to something and we choose the path that we just feel in our heart. And for as much as I want to be tangible right now for your listeners, I know everybody also can feel what I'm talking about, because there's a point, for instance, like, when I said I worked for the university for 3.5 years, I was following my head. Like, I was following the programs of go get a job, get a promotion, get more money, get a bigger house, get a BMW. I was following the programs. When I got to that point, I was working a full-time job that I actually only had to show up for half a day a week, Seth. Half a day of actual work. And when I made the choice to leave, people were saying to me, Leon, don't leave. Like, you've got it so easy. Like, you only have to do this. And look, they pay you this money. But I was getting results. I'm not saying I didn't do work. I got a team of 12 people, Seth, and I'd systemized everything. Like, it was so effortless. But in that awakening, I realized there was no freedom for me, because I was in this kind of box of creating an effective system, working half a day a week, but having to be in the office for 5 days a week. And it wasn't me. And I realized what was me. And so when I say to your listeners right now, like, you might even be in the business of your choice, but you might not be showing up authentically to who you truly are. You might be trying to, like you said earlier, Seth, you might be trying to follow somebody else's process, somebody else's strategy, which is okay, but you haven't put you into it. And that's what's not okay. And the way that I found that out for myself in a big way is when my previous marriage broke down. And that was a knock-on effect from when I had to liquidate my first business. Yeah. And we can dive into that at some point as well, because I think it will be useful for people to understand, well, how do you get to that point? For everybody, it may be different. It might be somebody has had to liquidate or gone into bankruptcy with a business. It might be a relationship breaking down. It might be somebody who's passed away. There are different things that are going to trigger us to realize, like, hey, I don't have to pursue this, and I want something bigger for me. Because you get that awakening, you get the call, and sometimes it's not the call you want or expecting, and that's the best time for you to receive it.
Yes, absolutely. And this is something I work a lot with, with my clients. I'm not working at them. I'm not working with them usually on their business. It's more
Yeah.
in the personal life, but it's something that people struggle with also very much personally, as you said, such as in relationships, is we oftentimes reach this point where we feel this calling to, what I say, change containers. Like, this container is no longer fitting my purpose. My purpose is bigger, and the boundaries of this container aren't expanding anymore. It's time to move containers. And what I find for a lot of people, because of I think the mess in our minds that we've created with this comparison culture on online with social media,
Yeah.
is that oftentimes people struggle with deciphering, is it really time for me to change containers?
Hmm.
Or am I afraid to stay and do the work that I'm actually designed to do and
Yeah.
keep the container? Yeah, and this is, I find this to be a huge struggle point for people. Like, am I wanting to leave in
100%.
fear or am I staying in fear?
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? Uh, I would say to everybody right now, it's okay no matter what you choose. Like, it's actually okay. And I say that because I remember when I was younger, like in my teens and 20s, because my mom used to smoke when I was younger. And I used to hate it because when I was a young kid, up until like 2 or 3, I had asthma. And then eventually over time, I kind of grew out of it. So I had, when I was younger, breathing difficulties. And so it was the thing. So I hated just smoke around me. And then, so I'd always say to my mom, like, stop smoking, look at how much money you'll save, look at how much healthier you'll be. But she didn't change. She didn't stop smoking. When she did stop smoking eventually was around about 4 years ago, when her now husband went through a health scare, like really big health scare, and she couldn't smoke around him. And that's what compelled her to change container. And what I realized is that it doesn't matter what container you are in right now. And if you choose to stay in there for extra longer, because what it really is all about is what it means to you. Yeah. And what meaning you give to it. And that's okay. And I say that because there's some people, like you say, that they can see the container that they want to be in, but because of fear of either doing the work or fear of changing, they stay where they are. And this is kind of coming back to the point I said with, like 3 to 5% of coaches are actually making good money. The rest are just in a struggle. And it's because they've chosen that container. And it might sound a bit harsh, but until you choose to make the changes, you can't change or expect a different result with the same thinking, with the same container.
So tell us a little bit about, you said you at one point in time you went through a divorce. I've also
Yep.
been through a divorce, so I understand
Mm-hmm.
what this is like. It is it really kind of opens your eyes to be like, hey, what am I doing in my life right now?
I think that's the nice way to say it, Seth.
Yeah, that well, I was trying to censor
But
myself as it was.
for me, it blew my world apart. Like,
Yes,
no shitting around.
right.
it,
And
you know, but please ask, what would you like me to go into?
I was just going to say, you reach these points where, sometimes things fall apart on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Like a divorce happens for me. I didn't ask for the divorce. My ex-husband asked me for the divorce.
Me either.
So there are times like that where it's just like, okay, the water's rising, it's sink or swim. I don't have a choice here.
Yeah.
And then there's that time, like you said, where you make the conscious choice
Mm.
to get in the water and swim.
Yeah.
And so what advice would you give people that are sitting on that fence of, do I is it time for me to end what I'm going to say is being in this container and move
Yeah.
on to what I'm being called to do?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it time for me to stay and put in the work? What would you say to those people that are kind of on the fence about that, as far as making the decision to say, okay, I think that it's time to let this go. It's time to let it go.
Yeah. That's a great question. It's actually quite a deep question, if we really wanted to dig into it, Seth. And as you were asking me the question, like, I had all these different stories kind of going through my mind, and I'll pull out one and kind of just dive into that and expand on that because it leads into another. So if we used my ex marriage as an example, and so when's the time to change? Like you, I wasn't the one who initiated the separation, yeah, or even suggested there was a problem. I was oblivious, Seth. I was like, I'm in this kind of 2.4 dream family situation, and like, this is how life was meant to be and told to me, right? And so as I reflect back and I look on that situation, or how life was for me, what I wasn't doing, but I was aware, I wasn't taking time to grow in different areas of my life and actively reflect on why I was doing what I was doing and what was the outcome that I was looking for. And this is going to lead into answer your question, because you said, when is the right time for somebody to either, stay, put in the work, or actually, hey, it's time for a change, whether that change is going to be good or bad, based on feelings, emotions, and whatever the outcome is. And I think if you can answer the questions as to why you're doing it and what is the outcome you're looking for, because at that point you can question, does it align with the vision I have, what I see? And for me, my previous marriage did, but I was also telling myself a lie, Seth, because at the time there were just some things I wasn't happy with. So because my first business failed and there was financial implications, my ex-wife had resentment to me, which is fine. Like, that's what happened. I made some bad choices. I put all of it on me. That was my life. So I accept responsibility, ownership of it, and accountability. But what I hadn't done is addressed it. It wasn't kind of like raised and a topic that was discussed. And I didn't put in the work, but the other person didn't put in the work. But I didn't put in the work, yeah, because I didn't dive into it and I didn't understand the emotions that I was going through. And I didn't understand the fact that I didn't know how to cope with that situation. I didn't learn, I wasn't coached. How could I even expect to have got through that, right? And all I did was use the knowledge that I had up until that point. And so for me, that's why I say, if you look at why you're doing whatever you're doing, does it align with your vision? What's the outcome you're looking for? So if you do put in the work, are you going to achieve the outcome? Because it might be that, well, if I put the work in, I'm not actually going to end up where I need to be. And I keep coming back to the point of, does it align with the vision? And here's the other thing. So if you're in a situation, and usually it's about relationships, unless it's kind of work or career type of thing, you have to have open and honest conversations with the person that you're in the relationship with. And I'm talking about how your relationship grows, how you connect together emotionally. If you have children involved, what is it that you want for your children? What time do you set aside for you and your relationship, your children, the people that matter, and also for yourself, time for yourself? I didn't really used to think about that one before. I was always busy doing stuff, actually, and I'm just raising that because as business owners, quite often we don't think about just time for ourselves. Like, we might go to the gym, but it's not really time for ourselves. We usually got headphones on and different stuff. I mean, just time just to go for a walk, or even just to listen to music and just enjoy the music and whatever it is. But the point I want to get to, Seth, is the more you do this, the more you train yourself to kind of spot what you're looking for, see what you're looking for, get the feedback. Because when that's missing, that's why these kind of situations occur. And it's like a big shock because we haven't challenged it or tackled it up until that point. And I think that's the problem. Now, here's the second story that I want to lead into. So after that separation, which took about 8 months, and it was very amicable and it was cool, because at the time I went through a lot of kind of shifts, like mentally. And for the final 4 months, I was the one progressing it all, because I realized, like, this isn't what I want, but I know what I want. And if I can't have that, I'm going to go 100% into where I'm headed next. Yeah. And that was really cool. And I know she was appreciative of me of that, coming out of it, because I was literally driving it all forward, but in a really nice way. So anyway, 3 months after I left the family home then, I take 3 weeks to find myself. We all get to this point, got to find myself again. I found myself. Yeah. And I realized what I was kind of closing my eyes to in that relationship, the things I was allowing to happen that I shouldn't have allowed to happen. There was things I learned about me with my own misbehaviors, my own bad habits, and the things that I needed to fix, Seth. That's probably the biggest lesson I got out of it, because it was awareness. That's the key thing. There was things that came out in terms of how I was as a parent. Yeah. I was raised in a kind of disciplined household, mostly by my father's grandparents. So my father's parents, my grandparents. And that came with a lot of discipline. And unfortunately, I was repeating the cycle, not to the extent that I was, but it was kind of there in a passive aggressive way. So not physically, which I experienced when I was younger. And I came out of that relationship, Seth, in those 3 weeks, and because we did some things like counseling and stuff, and there was things just brought to me, and I was like, wow. I remember where we sat in counseling, and I was in the chair, and I felt like I wanted the chair to swallow me up. at that point. And it was related to how I was being a father to my son in particular. And I just wasn't aware. And it's quite easy to think, well, surely you're aware of when you take your actions, but I wasn't aware because I was being somebody who wasn't authentic. Yeah, I was being somebody who couldn't see the wood for the trees, Seth. And I only knew what I knew because I was acting unconsciously, not conscious to actually who I wanted to be. Yeah, and who I was inside. So anyway, 3 weeks I come out, I start thinking, I start reading, I start writing in my journal, I start planning on what do I want in my life? And I started looking at these different areas like people, environment, relationships, family, emotions, career, time. And I learned this from who's a really cool contact of mine now. His name is Derek Mills. He wrote a book called The 10-Second Philosophy. He'd be a great guest for you, by the way, Seth. And I connected with him because I started up a podcast, and the podcast was to learn from others, but it was about business. But actually I started to get more from it than just business. So anyway, in these 3 weeks, I kind of looked at all these different areas, and I wrote down this list of 40 things I wanted in whoever was going to be my next wife. Yeah, eventually. Yeah. So 3 months later, after I leave, I bump into this amazing Polish lady at a marketing conference in London who just so happens to be over for the few days that the event's on. And then she's flying back to Poland. I literally see her in the morning in registration. I just see this woman. I just remember seeing her, this long, flowing, like dark brown hair. She just looked amazing. And I was like, in my mind, I'm not chasing relationship. I'm not chasing sex at this point or anything like that, like from a masculine or ego point of view, Seth. I'm just being me, but I notice her. You know, we can't stop when we see something we really like. So I notice her and I think, oh, she'd be cool. I hope I bump into her at some point through the next 2 days and speak to her. So it just so happens I go into this big room. There's like for 2,000 people. I sat in the VIP area and I sit at the back because I'm not late, but I'm later than the early birds. And as I sit down, I put my bag down and I look up and I see this lady in the front row and there's a seat next to her spare. And I'm like, I'm going to go sit there because it's this, am I going to stay in this container or am I going to jump over there? So I'm going to jump into the other container, the seat, right? So I go and sit next to her. That was 6 years ago. She's my wife now. And so the 40 things that I wrote in that journal, Seth, she ticked every one. One of them was challenging me so that I grow. And one of them was that we grow together spiritually. Another one was that my two existing kids from my other relationship, my eldest son and my daughter who's 8, so my son's 40, my daughter's 8, that they just connect. The first time that she met them, I hardly introduced them. I'm like, this is Magdalena. She's like literally knelt down on the floor and started playing with them. And I was like, wow. Yeah. And this is what I'm talking about. It's the courage to follow through on the change, which is what you mentioned. I had the courage and she showed up. She has challenged me. And we have grown, we've done the things that, we want to do, and we're still doing them. We have goals. And how do you make this thing more tangible? You keep reviewing where you are. So we have conversations. Sometimes the conversations aren't like happy. Sometimes the conversations are tough, but I can have it with her. And like, I can't put a price on that because I know that if I want to get to where I want to be, both in the relationship and the other things I want, I need to show up and confront those things, those behaviors about me, those behaviors about her, but we still come back together. Why? Because we believe in the vision, what we have for one another. And that's in a relationship kind of situation, but it's true in business. It's true in many different facets of what we do in life. And I say business or career, because quite often we don't have that person there to help us, like in a relationship, it's us. And that's why for me, the more we can question ourselves and come back to why we're doing it, what are we expecting from it? And does it align to the vision? Like the more we can start to answer, like, where am I meant to be? Am I here to put the work in, as you say, Seth? Or have I actually got to jump ship, jump container and actually go and put the work in over there? So hopefully that kind of breaks it down.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm really glad that you threw in this word here, because it's a word that is huge on this podcast, and I think it's the most important word that we can use in the human language, no matter what language you speak, as far as in our own growth, is the question, why? And from what I understand from what you said there, what I take from that is that the most important thing for a person to do when faced with this sort of decision is asking yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing right now?
Yeah.
And when we can answer that question honestly and look at that answer honestly, and then know our vision and look and be like, does this why align with that vision? The
Yeah,
answer becomes really clear as to what we authentically want to be doing in that situation.
100%. Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that's really cool. This question why is, and people I think overlook it so often, but it's
Yeah.
to me one of the biggest things in personal life as well as in
Mhm.
professional life that draws us back into ourselves so that we can show up in an authentic way.
Yeah, 100%. And like I still have to ask myself why I'm doing things now. It's not like you've arrived, guys. There's always a bigger container. You just have to step into it or be willing to. And like when I speak to people about vision, and I know I say I'm a visionary marketing coach, but like I really love the topic because like once a person's aligned to who they are, to their true, authentic self, to like at least at that point knowing what they're doing, why they're doing it, and it aligns to their vision, because like we never become our full potential. Like it's not possible. It's always in pursuit. It's almost like the film In Pursuit of Happiness. It's in pursuit of the vision or in pursuit of the potential. But that's the cool thing, because like we change, our bodies change, the goals we have in life change, the people around us change, like new people come in, other people go away, some people stay for a long time, some people a short time. But the key is to just know that you're always going to come back to like, why am I doing it now? And that's okay. Your vision is meant to be dynamic, it's meant to be fluid, because it grows as you grow.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So I've got kind of a bigger question here for you, and take your
Yeah.
time answering this.
Hmm.
Give me, if you could, and I'm going to make this specific to entrepreneurs
Yeah.
because I feel like with what I see in the world, being a coach, I see a lot of entrepreneurs. I'm in contact with a lot of entrepreneurs. I have several clients that are entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
And I see that this is a huge point of struggle for specifically entrepreneurs, is how to show up authentically in the business world as an entrepreneur, because there is so much out there, so many people with opinions, so many
Yeah.
people with 10-step processes of this is how you grow your business. And so
Hmm.
I want to ask you, in your opinion, what would you say are the three biggest struggles, or you call them mistakes, that
Yeah.
entrepreneurs are making that are keeping them from showing up authentically in their work, in their professional life?
Hmm. I think the first one is most entrepreneurs are hiding. They're not showing up. That's the first mistake. And what I mean by that is like I have clients right now, and I've got clients who are like really winning, and then I have other clients who are on that journey to winning, and they're on that journey because they haven't made the commitment to show up. Whether it means for instance, doing like a live video every day or a live video every week, or a podcast like we're on right now, Seth, or putting out content like once a week, once a day, whatever it is, just showing up. Yeah. So that their community, their niche, the people who they're intending to serve with their services actually see them. And that's mistake number one. There's people who are not showing up, quite a lot, actually. Number two, the mistake that they're making of not being authentic is they believe the fear, they believe the little voice. Yeah. So first they're not showing up, and then they continue to believe the little voice that I'm not good enough. And that in itself is not true, because if you're going to make a change, and if you're going to make that vision happen, you have to go through making mistakes. You have to go through like not knowing like what you need to do. But a lot of us, we listen to that little voice, and the voice is not authentic. This and like I'm bringing it back to your question, because the in order to be authentic means that you don't listen to the voice of doubt, because the voice of doubt is your ego. Now, for everybody listening right now who is a entrepreneur and you want something tangible, you look at every successful billionaire who has, become a self-made billionaire, which I believe is about 80% of the billionaires in the world are actually self-made, meaning it wasn't inherited, it was created out of an idea. So when we look at these people, they still had doubts and fears. Yeah. And there's a lot of documented stories, biographies, and so on. And what they all say, most of them, the ones that I've shared, not everybody shares, but most of them. Some call it a whisper, some call it, you've got to pay attention to your intuition or your gut, and just follow it. For me, I just call it your soul from a spiritual perspective. We all have that voice in us that we know is the true voice, not the voice of doubt, but the voice that says there is something bigger for you. But then you have the other voice that says, oh, but you're not good enough. And so for me, I think to answer step 2 or point 2 of what people are making a mistake, they believe the critical voice, the inner critic. Yeah. And you shouldn't, because that's not who you are authentically. It's not the genuine you. The genuine you has no fear. Number 3, when you make the mistake of not showing up, or you buy into the inner critic, when you do show up, you're still listening to that voice. And so you try and copy other people. Yeah. And you copy them in a sense of not trying to be you, but just your goal is to be like them, as in their content, the way that they do things. And, there's a good reason to do that, but some people get caught up in it. They get caught up in the cycle and they don't know how to break it. And they have to go through either life being that their lesson, or they get to a point where it does break, and that's their wake-up call, like we spoke about, earlier in the interview. And I think those are the 3 for me. So I'd love to kind of, as I think about this, and I think about audiences who listen to this topic, the biggest thing I can say to you is that if the likes of Steve Jobs, your Oprah Winfrey's, your Elon Musk's, and these people talk about, and other people doubted them and they just believed in themselves and they listened to the voice of what's possible, not the voice of you can't do this, because that happens anyway. It's how we're wired biologically. They say we have 60 to 70,000 negative thoughts a day. 95% of those thoughts are from yesterday, and 80% of your thoughts are negative. So we're recycling, excuse my language, bullshit. Yeah, negative bullshit every day. That's what you're up against biologically. It was proven by the National Science Foundation in 2005 in a survey that they did. And for me, Seth, it's like when we can just go for it, and as we learn to kind of turn the volume down on that inner critic and just go for it, and then he or she starts to pipe up again, and we learn to turn the volume down through different things, that's where we become who we truly are. And that's how we work towards this potential.
Yes, awesome. And the turning the volume down thing, this is kind of, I talk about this and I use it kind of in another way, is that oftentimes, that inner critic, that voice of the inner critic is usually bringing up emotions of doubt, bringing up emotions of fear, bringing up emotions of not enoughness, that we need to compare and we need to be better in order to be worthy enough. And what I often tell people is that we focus in on this voice. And when someone asks you, what are you feeling right now? What are you thinking? They're so focused in on this one emotion, this one thought process here, that they don't even recognize. And I say this a lot, we experience things as humans through contrast. Yep. And so if I'm experiencing this voice of fear over here, I wouldn't even recognize it's the voice of fear if I wasn't also able to experience voices of courage, of encouragement. And so I always teach people to use these voices of fear, of doubt, not as something to resist and get rid of, but it's like you said, you turn down the volume of them because you recognize they're actually pointing you to another voice that's going on over here in the background, and you can turn up the volume on that. They can still keep talking. We don't need them to stop talking. We just, like you said, you turn down the volume on one and you turn up the volume on the other.
100%, because all the teachings I've gone through spiritually, the more I pushed in business, the more I came to personal development, which is it's quite interesting actually, because I was just so wired on money and millions and stuff like in my 20s. And they always say that in your 20s you're kind of more technically focused, and then they say from 30 to 50 you become more emotionally focused, and 50 plus more spiritual. I actually find there's a lot more people now who that spiritual connection is now actually happening at a greater rate in 20s and 30s and 40s. And I think it's just the consciousness of people around the world and being exposed to different teachings and things. And we now have access to so much information that it's like, great triggers. But, I'd fully agree with you about, the 2 voices. And it is exactly as you say, you can't stop the ego speaking, but you can turn the volume down, and then you can pay attention to what your true calling is, the authentic self, your soul. And look, it isn't easy, guys. It's not like you have divine intervention every morning. You wake up and you're just given the message of the day. It's like, that's going to be you. Like, guys, even Seth, will attest to this. We get caught up in stuff still. Like, we get caught up in, different arguments that our inner critic is sharing with us. We get caught up in different perspectives, like, the things that are happening around the world and so on and so forth. And we have to find our way through, the forest, so to speak, back to who we are. And that's the key. The faster you can do that, the more effective you become.
Yes, absolutely. I think this is also really powerful to recognize, because we live in this society now that teaches us there's a point to get to,
Yep.
And I think oftentimes when people listen to podcasts like this and they hear coaches talking about things like authenticity, things like courage, it's like they think they will eventually reach this point where they've built up enough authenticity, built up enough courage that they've like arrived, and then that means I'll never struggle with being authentic again. I'll never struggle with being afraid again. We talk about emotional responsibility, and people think, oh yeah, so I'll eventually get to this point and I'll never react to emotions anymore. And I'm like, I see this happen with my clients all the time. They get frustrated. They're like, why am I not there yet? And I'm like, there isn't a there. There isn't one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's, when you graduate to new levels in awareness, in business, in life, relationships, you're just going to face new challenges. But it's like you said earlier, you just increase the size of the container. And then you're going to get to a point where that container is now filled, and you're going to have to go jump into another container should you choose it. Because, for instance, you might have jumped into like 1 level above or 10 levels above and find that you've arrived at where you wanted to be based on who you were before. But you might find that you've become comfortable at that place too. And this is why I say it's okay no matter what you choose, because that's for you to experience. That's your journey. The challenge comes when you start to create inner conflict, because you want something different, but you're choosing to stay there, but you want something different. And that's where people get caught up in depression and anxiety, because they know what they need to do, but they're not acting. And I was there. So when that first business for me failed, I was in a depression for like 4 years. I didn't know it at the time, but when I looked back and looked at the stuff I was doing and how I was behaving and being, and the decisions I was making, is like, that's what it was. I was putting a limit on myself, a glass ceiling. And you become wiser. But again, it was at that point of realizing I wanted more, and I took the steps. And when I took the steps and things started to change, then it's like, hold on, now my relationship's going away. That was a bit of a blow, and it was kind of like, okay, let's try and work and see if we can keep that. But then I got to the point where it's like, this ain't happening, and I'm willing to now go into this new container, new life. And I think that's the trick for all of us. And I'm sure you experience this so much, Seth, with the people that you coach as well.
Yes, absolutely. I do. Yes, this is, I think this is, I want to say it's probably one of the biggest struggles of us in this day and age, in this society. The current issues that we're battling is this being able to show up in this way and know ourselves, know what it is that we're doing on an aware level, not on, I think so many people, their struggle with being authentic is, it's not that they're not capable of being authentic, it's that they're not even paying attention to what it is that they're doing and why. Yeah. And the moment that they start becoming more aware of even just what they're doing now and why, it opens up the doors to seeing what is more authentic for them.
Yeah, 100%.
So if I get this right, it sounds a lot like, authenticity in business is very similar to authenticity in the personal life. It's really about, from what I'm hearing you say, it's about first choosing to look inside and realizing who you are and what you want out of life. Then it's looking at, where do I want to be as that person? Where am I heading towards? And then seeing, where am I right now? What am I doing and why? And kind of connecting all of that together and filling out the dots in between. What got me 100%.
Here? Yeah.
What were you going to say?
Carry on. No, carry on. I'll bring the point up in a moment.
I was just going to say, see where I am right now because of these things that I did. And maybe where I am right now isn't where I want to be. I want to be here. So now how do I connect the dots from here to there? But I think also what you're saying is it's important to understand how we got to where we are first before we can even connect the dots to where we want to go.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, you know, if we truly want to uncover our potential and just, you know, be on a path that we can pursue it, it really does come back to being open to looking back. You know, a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to look back on what I had before, that was all wrong. But it's like, it's not what you had before, it's more about what behaviors brought you there. Yeah. And I think like the more that we understand that we're driven by unconscious behaviors, you know, and that's what controls a lot of what we do. And sometimes we're like, why does this keep happening to me? And then you look in the mirror and you're the only person continually, the number one person in that story always is there. Yeah, the common denominator. For me, that's what it comes down to. And like when I was younger, I was just like, I'm confident now, Seth. But when I was younger, I was like super duper confident because my desires were all ego driven of like, what's possible, but there was no foundation underneath it in the sense of like what we grow to. And, you know, I used to ask this question of people and me and say, like, what's the key to success? What's the key to success? And as I got older, I started to realize it's unlocking you. Yeah. And if you unlock the authentic you, that's the key to success. It isn't just, oh, what's happening in the market. It isn't just, you know, you've got a hot product or a hot campaign or whatever it is. It's you. Because we all hear of the famous Hollywood actor or actress who is a success, falls into depression, alcohol, or some other, you know, stuff, and they spiral to a place that, you know, perhaps they could have avoided. And it's because they haven't dealt with who they are, like authentically, like what's going on, the programs. And I think that's it, you know. And I was thinking as you were speaking, when you were kind of sharing your point, and I was thinking, you know, there's the book Think and Grow Rich. Yeah. And it's true in so many different areas of life. You know, if we can understand what we're thinking and really connect to the higher power of who we are, the intuition, you know, the non-touchy-feely thing. And this is how I kind of make it tangible. And I explain it to people who can't quite make the connection spiritually. And I say, you know, at the very core, we're like this mass, this body, you know, flesh, organs, systems, nerves, right down to a cellular level. And then those cells are made up of atoms. Yeah. And those atoms, what holds them together? Yeah. And what people don't realize is that we are 99.9999999, I can't remember to how many nines, percent energy. Yeah. And the mass is 0.0000001. And when you start looking at that, you realize there's actually more to you than you can see, hear, feel, think. But somehow we can connect to that thing. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's really powerful. Really, really powerful to recognize. And also to recognize this is exactly what emotions are. They are energy in the body. And
energy, emotion.
Yes, exactly. And I think this is also one of the ways in which so many people sort of get stuck in their authenticity, as they've developed this, what I call emotional constipation. We're sort of taught that certain emotions are good, certain emotions are bad, certain emotions are positive, some are negative, and the goal is to experience more of the good and the positive ones, and to hurry up and get rid of the negative ones. And one of the things that I find is that no, it's when we open ourselves up to the full experience, and we're willing to experience any emotion. You know, we don't experience courage without the presence of fear. So if we avoid fear, we also avoid courage. It's
100%.
the same. Yeah. And it's the same with so many other parts of our emotional experience. In order to get that true, authentic experience in life, we have to be willing to let that energy, those emotions, sort of flow through us as they come, and be there to show us what they're there to show us.
100%. Yeah. Have you come across the book by Viktor Frankl, you know, Man's Search for Meaning?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's the same thing, you know, because when we allow those things to happen, then we can make sense of what they mean to us. But if we don't, then we'll never know. We'll never know what's on the other side.
Yeah, exactly. Powerful stuff. A lot of great stuff said here today. I think we're getting to the end of our time here. So Leon, why don't you do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you want to leave the audience with, as far as if they're thinking, yeah, maybe authenticity is really what I'm struggling with in my professional life, either as an entrepreneur or even if you're an employee working for a business. This applies to you too.
Yeah,
What's
it
one?
applies to everybody. The closing thoughts for me are, if you're aware of it, you have an awareness that like there's something greater in you for you to truly be who you truly are. Yeah. The person without I, yeah, that voice or even that feeling, just start by reading, start by looking for videos on YouTube, start by seeking help. The way that I made the fastest breakthroughs into my behaviors and the things that I was doing kind of unconsciously, and when things don't work out and you're like, why does that always happen that way? And we can't quite put a finger on it. Yeah, it's because we're allowing the unconscious programs and things about us just to run, and our ego shields us away from realizing that it is us. It's just how we're wired as human beings. And so for me, seek help. Don't just sit with it and think, oh, that sounds like a great podcast, and oh, there was one or two good things. Like, I've invested like hundreds of thousands in coaches, and I'm not saying that you need to do that. That's why I said get a book, watch a video on YouTube. But if you can seek out a coach or even go to a workshop, with other people and kind of just like immerse yourself into it. It's not about being part of like a cult or anything like that. It's about finding who you are, and that's what has worked for me. That's why hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people, do different spiritual workshops, or they do personal development workshops. And I think the key is just to do something. Don't sit with it and let it just kind of fester and like, oh, that's a great thought. Take action. That's my closing.
Awesome. So with that being said, for the people in my audience that are these entrepreneurs that are feeling like authenticity in their business and knowing their vision with their business is a huge struggle for them. That's not my zone of genius. This isn't where I coach people, but you do.
Yeah.
So how can these people get in touch with you?
The best ways to get in touch with me is you can go to my website, which is leonstreete.com. So it's Street with an E on the end. So LeonStreete.com, or just connect with me on Facebook or LinkedIn. They're like the two main social media platforms that I'm active on. You can find me on all the other ones, but just go find me there, connect with me, send me a message. If you want some free help and you want kind of some insights into, I guess, opening up the doors for your business, I've got like 20 different free resources that I give away, from PDFs to worksheets to video walkthroughs. And I do this because I understand where a lot of people are. They're in this place of like, but how do I make change? And so in order to help people on that journey, I give them a little something so that you can start to make change, get results. And then if you need more, we can talk more.
Perfect. Awesome. And guys, I'm going to get this information from Leon and link it in the show notes as well, so that if you didn't catch that, you can just look at the show notes and follow the links there. So Leon, thank you so much for coming on here, talking with me, talking with my audience. I'm sure everyone's going to take some good stuff from this episode, and I really appreciate you coming to talk to us.
Thank you very much for having me on the show, Seth. You've been a very gracious guest, and I've enjoyed my time here.
Awesome. All right, guys. You all enjoy the rest of your week. Go out there, find your authentic path, find your authentic vision, live it. Don't be afraid to show up. And I look forward to seeing you all again next week here. Until then, ciao. Hey, thank you for listening in this week. I hope you enjoyed the content of this episode. If you did, please subscribe or follow this podcast to receive the newest episodes every week as I bring them to you here on the Connect Your Health to Life coaching channel. Ratings, reviews, and comments are always appreciated. These allow me to know more of what my listeners would like in the podcast, and allow for more people who may be searching for a podcast just like this one to find the Connect Your Health to Life coaching channel. If you would like more information about me and the work that I do with my clients one-on-one, then please visit my website at www.slch.ch. Again, that is www.slch.ch. You can also find me on social media on Instagram at Seth_Lusk_coaching. Again, that is Seth Lusk_coaching. And on Facebook in my free Facebook group community called A Healthy Life Connection. We would love to have you in the group, and it's only 3 membership questions that you have to answer to join, and again, it's entirely free. And if you need any further information or just want to say hello, feel free to send me an email directly at slusk.health@slch.ch. Again, that is slusk.health@slch.ch. Thank you again so much for listening, and I look forward to our next time together. Ciao.